What's going on, everybody? This is Sano Ghost Select Music. Today I want to talk about this record right here. This is Sano's Ghost Notes, released on Origami Productions and Ultra Vibe Records in 2019. I know I've said this about pretty much all the records that I've talked about on this channel this year, but this was definitely one of my most anticipated records of 2019. Through not only the songs that I had heard uploaded to SoundCloud, but as well as the fact that up until this point, there hadn't been a full Sano album released on vinyl, and I was really excited about the prospect of having one of his records on record. And honestly, with a lot of the tracks that I had heard on SoundCloud, it really sounded like the stuff that he was putting out there was some of the strongest material that he has made to date. So now that I've given this record quite a few listens, I wanted to share my thoughts and opinions of this record with you guys and let you know whether or not I think it's worth checking out. So with that being said, let's talk about this guy. So first off, I have to say that I'm a massive fan of Sano. I first got into his music all the way back in like 2012, 2013, and a lot of it was through some of his 7-inch releases. This cover that he does of Everybody Loves the Sunshine is absolutely essential. Pick this up if you can still get it, as well as a cover of one of Stevie Wonder's songs. This Out of Sight edit is also top-notch. But really where Sano sold me on his music originally was this remix that he did, Monkey Sequence 19, all the way back in 2012. There's this combination of janky, sort of swing-heavy hip-hop that you associated with a lot of the post-Jay Dilla acts, as well as his proficiency as a pianist and as a musical arranger that just really elevated his sound way higher than a lot of the other beat makers out there. So I've always looked forward to hearing new music from him, and hearing that he had a new album on the way, I got really excited for the release of this record. But before I get into this record, I wanted to give you a little background about Sano. He is a beat maker slash producer slash multi-instrumentalist based out of Japan. He's been going pretty much since the beginning of the 2010s and has really made a name for himself, not only in the quality of his productions, but just his overall proficiency as a musician. I would say actually he's fairly analogous to Kiefer, especially in his piano playing. He likes to put in a lot of jazz improvisation into his productions and really shows off that he's quite the skilled pianist on pretty much all of the tracks that he puts out there. But not only is he a skilled improvisationist, he's also a really solid arranger, and on top of that, he plays pretty much all the instruments on all of his records. I think, and don't quote me on this, rather than sampling other people's work, he actually ends up sampling a lot of his own playing. I'll put a link in my WordPress and Steemit blog to a session that he did of him looping himself live and recreating one of his tracks from this record on the spot. He really seems like a top-notch musician. That sort of sound really shows up all over the place on this record. It definitely has elements of instrumental hip-hop and beat music in the record, but overall, this really feels like a composed record. There's a lot of just full-on songs on here. More so than a lot of his productions in the past, there's a lot of vocals on this record, which I should say as a quick side note, I will not be getting into the lyrical content of this record, largely because my Japanese just isn't good enough to really dive deep into the meaning of a lot of these tracks, so sumimasen. But anyways, there's a lot more singing on this record. It seems like there's a lot more pop hooks on this record, and it seems like he's also referencing a lot more different types of music on this record than he has on previous releases that he's put out. It really seems like he's diving into a lot of his influences, so there's a little bit of funk, a little bit of soul, a little bit of hip-hop, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of electronic music, a little bit of disco. There's a whole host of different elements and different sounds throughout this record. There's even a little bit of Japanese pop in here, and I gotta say, it all comes together swimmingly. Hands down, at this very moment, this is my favorite record of 2019. I've listened to it more than any other record this year, and not only that, it has some of my favorite tracks of the year. As I kicked off this video with the track Sit at the Piano, with its just absolutely beautiful, majestic piano playing over some really shuffly drums. I only played you a small little snippet of it, but the track just gets more gorgeous as it goes on and has this beautiful, emotive, emotionally touching quality to it. And that's not the only track on here that has that to it. One of the big standout tracks for me early on for this record was Stars in Your Eyes, which does have a couple of sort of cheesy Japanese pop moments, cheesy Japanese pop elements to the track, but for whatever reason, it gives the song sort of this nice, nostalgic quality to it that I really enjoy. There's this infusion of some electronic moments, some really interesting synth and keyboard tones that he uses throughout the track, and as well with Sano's whispered, low-key vocals sort of adding to it. There are these little sort of twee vocal snippets throughout the song, but I actually kind of enjoy it, and it actually gives the track a little bit of like a playful element to it. But those are only two highlights from a record that is absolutely littered with highlights. The album starts off beautifully with the song End, which goes into this nice little up-tempo number called Baby on the Moon, and then gets into a track with a low-tempo swing that would make D'Angelo jealous, a la Untitled How Does It Feel. It's just so swing heavy and so broken and perfectly punctuated with these little horns and drums before it gets into this sort of blissful ambient pop territory. Other highlights on this record for me include the tracks DT Part 2, which is definitely the most straightforward beat track on here. I really like the track My Girl, which is this nice up-tempo disco number. The album ends beautifully on this track Melody at Night, which is sort of this more sort of low-tempo disco track that's got a nice little thump to it and some nice little hooks. Overall, I gotta say there's really not a bad track on here. There are definitely some songs that are more memorable than others, but overall there really isn't a track that's bad on here. The only one that I feel kind of falls flat for me is Don't You Know the Feeling, which is just a little bit too rigid, which is surprising considering how much flow and swing there is to a lot of the tracks on here. But honestly, this is hands down my favorite record. I haven't listened to a single record more than this one. There's so much soul, there's so much creativity, there's so much emotion. It's technically proficient in the music territory. It's fun to listen to. There's beautiful moments, there are fun moments. It's just the complete package record for me. And what really I find kind of interesting about this record is usually my sort of favorites tend to fall more in the territory of like the most poignant and the most like emotionally impactful or the like strongest artistic statement. And that isn't to say that this record is lacking in that territory, but what this record has done is taken all of those things, also added a layer of playfulness not usually found in a lot of the sort of super serious albums that I usually end up picking for album of the year. And assuming that there isn't another record as catchy, addictive, mind-blowing, and just an absolute joy to listen to, Ghost Notes by Sano is hands down my record of 2019. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've given this record a listen, please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you want to hear more of this record for yourself, please head over to my WordPress or Steemit blog, because that's where I'll be posting music links so you can check out this record or any of the records that I talk about on this channel. As well as please head over to my Mixcloud account where you can check out Raw Select Radio, which is essentially the audio component of Raw Select Music. There you can hear me play records like this one or a bunch of the other records in my collection that I don't get a chance to talk about. Links for everything, as always, down in the description. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!